Austin Dillon backs up his strong run from Darlington last week, but at the end it was Brad Keselowski cruising to his 4th win of the season. Does this make Brad Keselowski the championship favorite? Honestly, I think it might. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric, and welcome to Out of the Groove, late night edition. Man, all these night races in a row. We got another one next week, messing up my sleep schedule, guys. But we have a lot to get to tonight after the first Richmond Raceway race of the season, the second race of the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs. I'll get this out of the way right away. It was kind of a boring race. At least it was a boring finish. I thought the first half of the race, especially the strategy in Stage 2, was pretty interesting, and even in Stage 3, you saw some playoff drivers kind of make mistakes here and there. So it wasn't an awful race, but it was a boring race. I gotta say, Richmond continues to be my third favorite of the 3 short tracks on the Cup Series schedule. It's better than a couple mile and a halfs maybe. Let me just say though, I'm glad NASCAR is building a new short track for 2022. But it was a weird race tonight. We're gonna talk about all the different storylines because while the race itself was fairly straightforward, there are some very interesting and noteworthy stories coming out of this thing. We'll talk about all of that. It was a weird night at Richmond though. No cautions for incident, just the stage breaks and the competition yellow. That was it. A lot of green flag runs, a lot of tire strategy and pit strategy coming into play, but ultimately it was some kind of new faces near the front of the field. Anyway, we're going to talk about all that and more at the end of this video though. Of course, I'll be putting Richmond Raceway, what is it, the Federated Auto Parts 400, I believe? I'll be putting that on the Groovy Gauge as well, giving you guys my score. But to start with, let's just jump right into looking at the top finishers, because I think I'm just going to go down the line and talk about what this means in the grand scheme of things. Let's start quite simply with Brad Keselowski getting his 4th win of the season, and he did it in dominating fashion. He was arguably the best car all night long. This is Brad Keselowski's 3rd win this year with the 750 horsepower rules package. Of course, he won at Bristol in the spring, he won at Loudon just a couple months ago, and now he's won at Richmond Raceway, all of these using the low downforce package. And the reason that's important is because the championship race this year is at Phoenix Raceway, a 1 mile, fairly flat track that will be using this same 750 horsepower low downforce rules package. And in fact, Brad Keselowski, and they talked about this during the broadcast, he said in his post-race interview that this car that he just won with, and also won Loudon with, the same car is 2 for 2 this year, is going to be the car he uses at Phoenix at this rate, should he make it to the championship 4. Even if he doesn't make it to the championship 4, they might as well use it if they got it. This thing's undefeated. That should make the rest of the field very scary. Now, when he won at Loudon a few weeks back, a couple months ago, before the regular season ended, of course, we talked about then, maybe Brad Keselowski, who says this is quietly one of the best seasons of his career, maybe he's quietly emerged as that third wheel, maybe the next guy in line should Harvick or Hamlin falter in the championship race, because most people look at Harvick and Hamlin. Of course, Harvick won last week. They look at them still as the championship frontrunners. They still have the most playoff points. They're going to have the easiest time at least getting to the championship race. But I want to encourage people to remember, with this format, it all comes down to one race. And it's not 2 guys in that championship race, it's 4. So Harvick and Hamlin, should they cruise their way to Phoenix, there's still 2 other spots wide open. And I have a good feeling Brad Keselowski, who now has the 3rd, by far the 3rd most playoff points in the Cup Series, barring an epic collapse in the 2nd or 3rd round, which I don't really expect, Brad Keselowski is a pretty heavy favorite to make it to Phoenix as one of the championship finalists. And at Phoenix, playoff points are out the window at that point. It's just best finisher wins the championship. And Brad Keselowski has won 2 straight races with that specific car built by Team Penske. And both of those races have been run on 750 horsepower, low downforce tracks, and have been run at 2 pretty flat tracks that I would say are arguably the 2 most similar tracks we have to Phoenix. That's Loudon and Richmond I'm talking about. And in fact, the tire combination that they used at the race tonight is reportedly the exact same tire they're going to use at Phoenix for the championship race. So my point is, all year long, we've talked about how Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin are dominating. I mean, both of them are having career seasons at this point. But if we actually step back and look at the numbers, they're really only dominating the big tracks, the mile and a halfs, the 2 milers, the Poconos and Michigans, and etc. When we get to these shorter tracks, and I'm talking technically like a mile and shorter, even though technically Phoenix isn't a short track, Loudon's not really a short track, but a mile and smaller tracks where we use the 750 horsepower package, Hamlin and Harvick, I mean, they've been good still. They've certainly been top 5 worthy most weeks, but they're not dominant. Not even close. I mean, just look tonight. If you look on that chart right there, I mean, neither of them ended up in the top 5. Hamlin struggled to stay on the lead lap for a lot of this race. I mean, I'm just saying, with the way Brad Keselowski has emerged the second half of this season with this specific car on this specific type of track, he is the championship favorite right now. And I don't really think there's a question to it. I mean, obviously it's one race, anything can happen. Harvick, who's won 9 times at Phoenix, could easily win the championship. Hamlin, who won Phoenix last year, could easily win the championship. It all comes down to one race. Bad break here or there could end your championship hopes, but at least going in, if I'm like Vegas placing bets or placing odds on these guys, I would look at this season and say Brad Keselowski is the easy favorite at this point, especially if he brings this specific car that he just won with to that race, which it sounds like he will. I think Brad Keselowski is a very serious championship contender, and I bring it up now because if in 9 weeks Brad Keselowski does win the championship over Harvick or Hamlin, I don't want to hear a bunch of people coming out of the woodwork saying, where did Keselowski come from? It was Harvick or Hamlin's championship to boot. Like, Keselowski wrecked the system. He doesn't deserve this championship. He doesn't have the wins Harvick and Hamlin do. Like, where did he come from? I don't want people to be surprised or shocked if Brad Keselowski wins this championship. I want to plant that seed right here, right now, so that when and if it does happen, people aren't sitting here acting like it blindsided them and acting like the whole season's been a lie or something like that. Like, no, the writing's been on the wall now for months that Brad Keselowski is inching closer to Harvick and Hamlin, and I think at these types of tracks, I think he has the upper hand on Harvick and Hamlin. So keep an eye on Brad Keselowski. Barring any catastrophes the next few weeks, he's going to go to Phoenix, and he is going to be a huge threat to win his second Cup Series championship. But I've harped on Brad Keselowski a lot. We got to talk about a lot more drivers here from this top finishing results, and even some that finished worse than this, because they also had there's some negative stories in this whole thing. Good run for Team Penske. See Joey Logano there finishing third, Martin Truex second. A couple other drivers that I think could be outside championship threats if they sneak into, if one of them at least sneaks into the championship for at Phoenix. Don't count them out. Austin Dillon was in a lot of ways the star of the show tonight for the second straight week. Last week he ran second, and remember, almost caught Kevin Harvick at the end of that race, almost got his second win of the season. I think a lot of us thought that was maybe a fluke. I mean, yeah, he ran well, he ran in the top 5 most of the day, but can that team really replicate that 2 weeks in a row? I mean, RCR hasn't been able to string together multiple great runs in a row in years. I mean, but lo and behold, especially the first half of this race, Austin Dillon was the show. I mean, he drove up there and just drove past guys like Kevin Harvick, Brad Keselowski for the lead on multiple occasions. I don't know that he was the best car of the night, and Austin Dillon himself was not mistake-free. Of course, he made the mistake of failing to get onto pit road in stage 3, cost him a couple of seconds on the track, and that honestly might have been the difference between him finishing 4th and maybe finishing 2nd and having a shot at that win if he doesn't make that mistake. So Austin Dillon was not perfect tonight by any means, and I don't know that the car was necessarily the best in the field, but it was top 2 or 3, I think. And so the question I was trying to answer all night long was, where the heck did Austin Dillon and Richard Childress Racing come from? Because they haven't looked this good since Kevin Harvick drove for them. Okay, Ryan Newman had some good runs in 2014. They haven't looked this good in a long time is my point. So what on earth got into them? I don't know. I genuinely do not know. I mean, Austin Dillon said before these playoffs he felt good about his chances this year to maybe make a deeper run than expected because, as he put it, these are the best cars he's driven in his Cup Series career. And apparently he was not wrong. Of course, Justin Alexander, he's working with Justin Alexander this year. The two of them have a long-lasting relationship. Clearly, they are gelling. I think the driver-crew chief relationship matters more this year than arguably any other year before, and that is showing through right now. So credit to Austin Dillon for the second week in a row, another top 5. I mean, I just said he needed top 10 his way to the next round. He's on his way. I mean, he's got a huge cushion. We'll look at the points in a second. He's over 30 points to the good as long as he doesn't wipe out at Bristol. Austin Dillon's moved on to the second round. I didn't predict that. I'll bet a lot of you watching weren't super sold on Austin Dillon getting past the first round, so definitely the surprise, in a positive way at least, of the playoffs so far has been Austin Dillon in that 3 team. I'm rooting for him at this point. I want to see how deep they can go. Let's talk about 2 of the drivers. There's 17th place Matt Benedetto, 19th place Ryan Blaney. Those 2 drivers came into tonight's race at the very bottom of the playoff grid after running into issues or struggling at Darlington last week, and the 2 drivers continued to absolutely struggle. Those 2 teams are way off right now, and they are now on the brink of elimination here in the first round. When it comes to Matt Benedetto, I can't say I didn't see this coming. The team kind of limped into the playoffs those last few regular season races. They do not seem to be at the top of their game. I picked Matt Benedetto to be out in the first round. That doesn't really shock me. It is disappointing still, but it doesn't really shock me. The Ryan Blaney deal does surprise me a bit. Last week, at least, the excuse was that they failed pre-race inspection. He was without his main crew chief. Okay, that was the excuse. That's why they ran kind of bad last week. But this week, I mean, his teammate won the race. I don't understand what's going on with the 12 car right now. I know they had an issue on early pit stop where I think they had a loose wheel and they had to come back in and restart the rear. And I can't remember if he had any other major issues, but quite frankly, he was an 18th place car most of the night. And at a hard track to pass at like Richmond is, I mean, he wasn't going anywhere all night long. And that just isn't going to cut it. I know Richmond, statistically speaking, is one of Ryan Blaney's worst racetracks, so I can't say I was expecting him to go out there and run top 5 or anything, but to run 20th most of the night, he spent more of the night, I think, off the lead lap than he did on the lead lap. I just don't know what happened, because at the beginning of this year, Ryan Blaney looked great. He looked fantastic. But as the season's gone on, they just have steadily gotten a little bit worse and worse. At the beginning of the year, the story was Ryan Blaney runs really well, has winning speed, and then something goes wrong, usually beyond his control, and he finishes like 7th. That was kind of happening. It happened at Las Vegas. I can't remember. I think that kind of happened at Auto Club. It happened in a few races this year. Now, Ryan Blaney's just running 12th to 20th. I mean, he just is. They don't have any positive momentum going their way, and going into Bristol, a track that he's kind of hit or miss at in his career, I don't have faith in Ryan Blaney moving on past this round, quite frankly, and it would be shocking for Ryan Blaney to be out this early. So he is easily the biggest disappointment of the night. Another driver you don't even see in the top 20 there is William Byron. He ran 21st tonight. Again, I don't know what went wrong. As far as I can tell, they just missed the setup. He and Chad Knaus both making a milestone number of starts. This was William Byron's 100th race of his career, and this was Chad Knaus's 700th race of his career, and it's one they're likely going to want to forget very quickly. This one surprises me as well, because William Byron did have some positive momentum coming into this thing. He finished top 5 at Dover a few weeks back. He won Daytona, had a top 5 run last week, finished 5th at Darlington. And then they showed up to Richmond and just absolutely sucked tonight. I mean, there's no other way to put it. They were bad. They were really, really bad. He came into this race with a pretty decent cushion over 13th place, I guess. Now he finds himself below the cut line. We'll look at the points. We'll go and look at the points right now. We haven't looked at them yet. You can see William Byron is no longer in control of his own destiny. He's going to, I mean, unless he wins at Bristol, but I don't know. He's not my pick. He's still not too far off, so it wasn't a catastrophic night by any means for William Byron, but certainly not the night they were hoping for. You look here, Cole Custer, the rookie, still 8 points to the negative, but above them, I mean, Eric Almirola, Kurt Busch, and Clint Bowyer are single-digit points to the good. That is, a bad stage at Bristol could put them on the brink of elimination. Even Kyle Busch, the defending series champion, who ran pretty well tonight, had a top 10 run, he's only 18 points to the good. That's not safe by any means, and Bristol is chaotic. Bristol, bad things can happen really fast without your doing, and you can find yourself in trouble like it's nobody's business. But this is what I'm talking about. Look at Austin Dillon, 36 points to the good. My goodness. Denny Hamlin also locked himself in on points with his finish tonight, so that just goes to show you how important regular season points are, of course, for Denny Hamlin. You see there, I think most of the people on the left side of your screen are likely safe. Chase Elliott, Alex Bowman, if they get taken out early on, they could be in big trouble pretty quick, but I'll trust them to play it smart. Beyond that, a lot of questions remain. This first round could see some pretty big names drop out earlier than expected. But once again, there's one final look at your top 20 finishers from tonight's race. Congratulations to Brad Keselowski. Good to see him get another win in what's been a very, like you said, quietly great season for Brad Keselowski. Now it is time for that glorious part of the show where we rate tonight's race and put it on the infamous groovy gauge, if you will. I really tried to keep my expectations fairly modest for this race. Like I said at the beginning, Richmond is, it has been for a little while at least, is my third favorite of the 3 short tracks on the NASCAR schedule. It just doesn't have the same thrill and excitement of Bristol, and it doesn't have the same beating and banging type action that Martinsville has. It sort of is an intermediate track, almost disguised as a short track. I often love Richmond when you can really get multiple lanes working, and you see comers and goers often very quickly, because if one guy suddenly figures out how to work the top, he's flying through the field faster than you'd realize. Really, all the races this weekend, especially the 2 Xfinity races, which I thought were 2 of the least eventful Xfinity races of the entire season, the fast lane was the bottom, is what it really looked like. You could sometimes make a pass in that second groove, but it was not easy, and that was a little bit of a letdown for me at Richmond. But really, this race was kind of a letdown for me because we had the low downforce package back. Last year they ran 2 of these things with the high downforce, and certainly I don't think the high downforce package was ever built for Richmond Raceway. Neither race last year was particularly memorable, but with low downforce back, more slipping and sliding, I thought tonight's race would be at least noticeably better than last year's, but it really wasn't. I'll be honest, it was not noticeably better than either of last year's Richmond races, and so that is a little disappointing. I do think NASCAR has sort of conditioned a lot of its fans to expect every race, or most races at least, to look like, Talladega or, a Bristol night race or something. You see this in almost all the commercials, all the promos. It's always big wrecks or, restarts where they're 2 and 3 wide. Obviously, not every NASCAR race can be an all-time classic. I appreciate that at the very least NASCAR has such wide variety on its schedule. Very different racetracks, most all of which handle or at least race significantly differently. I think tonight's race is just proof that even if NASCAR one day is able to refine things and develop the perfect stock car race car, there are still going to be just races, from time to time. In fact, a lot of the time. Maybe not most of the time, but a significant portion of the time. Because last year, all I heard was that the high downforce rules package was ruining tracks like Richmond, and to the naked eye, that's kind of what it looked like, maybe. But here we are this year, you got the package you wanted, you got the cars you wanted, and the race wasn't any better. I mean, it's just, I mean, I'm not trying to sit here and say that, yes, we should go back to high downforce at short tracks. No, I definitely am not saying that, but I'm just pointing out that even when you think you have the cars right, and the drivers are in the right mindset, and there's the right stakes on the line, this is a playoff race, there's a lot on the line. It still doesn't guarantee that every race is going to be an absolute barn burner. You know, it just, you can't control everything like that. You know, I'm a Rockets fan, and I didn't watch any of the game tonight, but they got absolutely skunked by the Los Angeles Lakers in an elimination game. I'm sure to most people watching at home, unless maybe you're a Laker fan and like seeing them blow them out, that was probably a very boring NBA game to watch objectively. And if you look around, if you look at baseball, hockey, basketball, football, a lot of games every week, I would say, are objectively boring, you know, on average. It's either a blowout or maybe two not so great of teams playing, or it's really low scoring, and a lot of people like to see offense. You know, if we really step back and think about each week, each day, you know, there's a lot of boring games in each sport. There's a lot of great games in each sport as well, but if you look, it's always a mix. The problem NASCAR has is that there's only one cup race every single week. Every single weekend. I mean, usually this year's been kind of a special case. And so if that one race is fantastic, everyone's in a good mood, but if that one race is boring, everyone's in a bad mood. There's no, you know, mix of good and bad games each week like there is in other sports. So I do think that puts NASCAR kind of in a tough box, honestly, but I guess it just goes to show you that even if NASCAR one day gets the exact right car, the exact right tire combination, the exact right everything, it still doesn't guarantee that every race is going to be fantastic. There's still going to be boring races, and that's what tonight was. So I'm sorry, I completely forgot about you, Groovy Gage. That's my bad. I got off on a tangent there. But tonight's race, I can't give it higher than a 45% on the Groovy Gage. I would say most of the joy that I had watching tonight's race came from watching guys like Austin Dillon, who I'm not used to seeing run up front, have, you know, career-making nights. I know he's won races in the past, but now that he's run top 5 2 weeks in a row, people are really starting to take notice of Austin Dillon and that team, and are really starting to take them seriously. So that was one of the most fun things, probably the most fun thing to watch in tonight's race. There weren't a whole lot of great battles for the lead, especially not late. Keselowski ran off with this thing. His thing was not in doubt. It was a boring race. I was bored watching it. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. It was a 45%, slightly below average, you know, but that's just my score. Let me know what you guys think down below. I'm sure we'll see some pretty wide varying scores on this one. All right, but that's all I've got for tonight's video, tonight's race review. Thank you all for staying up late, or if you're watching this the next morning, good morning. Hope you have a great rest of your weekend. But thank you all for watching. Be sure to subscribe if you are new to the channel. We talk NASCAR almost every single day. Also follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram, and a huge thank you to my fantastic Patreon supporters. If you also want to be a supporter of Out of the Groove, check out that top link in the description below. I greatly appreciate it. More videos to come later this week, so keep an eye on your subscription boxes. I will see you all again very, very soon. Take care, everyone.